As a result of several threats, wouldn't a leader feel compelled to fulfill the demands of Western powers? Even assassinations and coup attempts against these leaders have been tried by Western countries. Traoré is on a similar route to leaders like Thomas Sankara, who have been terminated for their choices. Is he not terrified then? Ibrahim Traoré, the youthful president of Burkina Faso, declares that he has no fear of dying. Traoré recently said that he doesn't fear dying. External powers were outraged by this comment and expected him to retract it. Is he the one who is afraid? Or is now the moment to dread for the West? Whom is he announcing his fearlessness to? Let's investigate. Imagine a leader who, in the face of imperial forces that have profited from fear and subordination, states frankly, "I'm not scared to die." This is not a Hollywood film script. Under Ibrahim Traoré's direction, Burkina Faso is witnessing this reality. With his bold style of leadership, Ibrahim Traoré, the youthful president of Burkina Faso, is creating waves in a world where Western domination has dominated world politics for generations. He declared his fearlessness in the face of death in a forceful speech, opposing African growth, cowardice, treachery, and incompetence, as well as the West's long-standing intimidation tactics. Not only are Traoré's remarks a defiance of the status quo, but they also represent a vision for a new Africa, one that rejects colonial domination in favor of true sovereignty. The message of Traoré is one of urgency, a cry for a new breed of African leaders. We must examine his bold claim in order to appreciate the seriousness of his remarks. Why would a youthful African leader publicly state that he had no fear of dying? What message is Traoré conveying to his opponents as well as to his allies? Traoré's admission that he has no fear of dying is much more than a showy assertion of self-confidence. It is an appeal for African unity, as well as a calculated challenge to Western hegemony. In the past, as a fundamental tactic of control, the West has used terror to maintain power over African states through coups, assassinations, and economic sanctions. Retaliation against leaders who dared to envision an Africa free from Western exploitation, such as Muammar Gaddafi, Thomas Sankara, and Patrice Lumumba, was quick and ruthless. By announcing his lack of fear, Traoré is weakening one of the most potent instruments of seduction used by the West and rejecting its legacy of terror. This claim demonstrates a deep psychological insight. Traoré is expressing that he will not back down from the fear of dying that has been employed to keep things as they are. His remarks strike a deep chord throughout the continent, serving as a sobering reminder that for African leaders to truly attain freedom, they must be prepared to give up everything. The African people can use this proclamation as a rallying cry. Speaking not only for himself, Traoré is speaking for all Africans who have been suppressed, oppressed, and subjected to colonial and neo-colonial powers. He is urging a change in perspective from one of fear and surrender to one of bravery and defiance. Essentially, Traoré is advocating for the spirit of resistance to rule Africa instead of the ghost of fear. Traoré's position also sends a message to those who oppose African progress from inside. Those who, frequently for personal benefit, have participated in the exploitation of their own nations. Traoré is also challenging those who have sold their souls to outside powers to hold onto their positions of privilege by declaring that he is not frightened to die. By announcing that there is a new breed of leadership in town, one that cannot be bought or intimidated, he is laying down the gauntlet to these actors. With his audacious proclamation, Traoré ushers in a new era of daring, brave leadership. Uncompromising and blatantly African. However, his vision goes beyond than that. In addition, he has outlined a plan for the continent's renaissance that centers on the necessity of eradicating three particular vices: cowardice, treachery, and ineptitude. Why does Traoré think that the three things that Africa needs to eradicate in order to truly be freed are cowardice, betrayal, and incompetence? Add your voice to the total liberation of Africa by leaving a comment in the comments section below. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more informative videos like this one. Let's proceed. Captain Ibrahim Traoré reportedly said, "Let me tell you that in order for us to come together, we need to eradicate three words, that is, three main vices, from our actions and our lives. I refer to ineptitude, treachery, and cowardice." Traoré's demand to eradicate fear, treachery, and ineptitude is a potent critique of the exact characteristics that have impeded Africa's development and kept the continent bound by its colonial past. Recognizing the role each of these vices has had in upholding the status quo is essential to comprehending Traoré's vision of an Africa freed from injustice. Being cowardly is more than just a character flaw, but a structural problem that has made it possible for outside forces to keep control of the continent. It stands for a lack of courage to oppose repressive governments, a fear of losing privileges or authority, and a preference for security above sovereignty. The West has been using cowardice as a weapon for generations to make African governments submit to foreign demands rather than take a chance on conflict. Traoré's appeal for a new generation of leaders is seen as concentration on eliminating cowardice. Leaders with the guts to take on external exploitation as well as domestic corruption. On the other hand, betrayal is a deeply rooted issue that has afflicted Africa ever since the slave trade. It is the act of betraying one's fellow citizens for one's own benefit, frequently at the request of foreign powers. Movements for independence and self-determination have been undermined by betrayal. This vice has consistently hindered Africa's search for strength and unity, whether it is through the betrayal of the public trust by those in authority or the betrayal of revolutionary leaders by their closest allies. Traoré's appeal to end betrayal is an appeal for morality and unity, imploring Africans to put the good of the group ahead of their own interests. Among the three vices, incompetence is arguably the most prevalent. It involves more than just a lack of education or experience. Rather, it involves a calculated West African policy of dependency. Foreign aid programs that promote dependency over self-sufficiency, undervalue local knowledge in educational systems, and encourage compliance over competence in governance structures have all contributed to the growth of incompetence. By emphasizing the need to eradicate ineptitude, Traoré is calling for a new generation of African leaders who are capable, educated, and devoted to serving the needs of the people rather than those of outside sponsors. In addition to pointing out the issues, Traoré is outlining a vision for a new, independent, powerful Africa by advocating for the eradication of cowardice, treachery, and ineptitude. But how has this audacious new vision been received in the West? Traoré's audacious remarks have prompted a prompt and significant response from the Western world. He has been dubbed an extremist, a firebrand, and even a possible dictator by Western media outlets. This reflexive response is expected from a system that has long used the story of African dependence and incapacity to defend its ongoing meddling on the continent. Why is the West so afraid of Traoré's words? Because he poses a direct threat to the meticulously planned neo-colonialist system that has made Africa permanently dependent on other people. Western nations have employed political scheming, economic pressure, and military action to keep their sway over countries in Africa. It is a declaration of war against this neo-colonial order that Traoré is calling for a departure from this system. His refusal to back down in the face of threats from the West portends a more assertive Africa that values reciprocity and respect over charity and condescension. Traoré's leadership and everything he stands for are not the only things that the West fears. The potential for an independent, unified Africa that is unwilling to follow the laws established in Washington, London, or Paris. The political and economic interests that Western countries have painstakingly built over the years are directly challenged by this. If additional African politicians take up Traoré's position, the foundation of Western dominance on the region may start to fall apart. Additionally, the hypocrisy of Western countries who support corrupt regimes and tyrants that further their own agendas while denouncing democracy and human rights is made clear by Traoré's leadership. His actions highlight the hypocrisy that has long been a feature of Western policy toward Africa, where resource access takes precedence over human rights and stability is favored above democracy. In addition to unsettling Western nations, Traoré's resistance has sparked a fresh wave of Pan-Africanism throughout the continent. A re-evaluation of what African governance can and should look like is being sparked by his leadership. However, what does Traoré's leadership portend for Africa's future? With Traoré at the helm, African politics are witnessing a seismic change that may completely alter the course of the continent. His strategy is predicated on a straightforward but effective idea. Africa needs to be free in all spheres: political, economic, cultural, and psychological. His leadership is so revolutionary because of this all-encompassing vision of freedom. Traoré is aware that the absence of foreign forces is not enough to achieve full independence. It necessitates a radical rethinking of the colonial mentality that has long pervaded Africa. Other African leaders face a challenge from Traoré's leadership. It poses an important query. Will they carry on with the foreign powers game? Or will they follow Traoré's lead and create a fresh route towards genuine sovereignty? Not only is his demand for an end to cowardice, treachery, and ineptitude, but it also serves as an invitation, an appeal for bold, capable, and unwavering African leadership that is dedicated to the people's needs. In addition, this leadership vision aims to forge a new form of African unity. Traoré's focus on honesty and skill might open the door for fresh African collaboration. Traoré is establishing the groundwork for a more cohesive and self-sufficient Africa by emphasizing the development of robust, autonomous institutions and encouraging regional cooperation. This is a feasible goal, not merely an idealistic one. Africa has the capacity to become a global powerhouse under the correct leadership. In addition to having an abundance of natural resources, the continent also boasts talent and innovative spirit. But there are a lot of obstacles in the way of realizing this goal. Africa is under a lot of strain from both the outside and the inside, including persistent political unrest, economic reliance, and foreign meddling. However, Traoré's leadership provides a path forward to overcome these obstacles. Africa can create a future free from the legacy of its colonial past by putting an emphasis on education, making investments in local businesses, and encouraging a culture of responsibility and transparency. It is important to think about Traoré's leadership's larger geopolitical ramifications as he continues to negotiate these difficulties. Can his dream of an autonomous and free Africa hold up in a world where big interests control the majority? Any leader promoting radical change faces challenges in the global arena, particularly when it comes to promoting the kind of sovereignty that Traoré envisions. Given their vested interests in Africa, Western nations are unlikely to give up their sway without a fight. They have several instruments at their disposal to topple any dictatorship that challenges their hegemony, from economic sanctions to covert operations. Traoré's perspective is not without supporters, though. A new wave of solidarity is forming as the global South loses more and more faith in Western power. Nations in Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America, which, having also felt the sting of colonialism and Western meddling, are starting to build coalitions around respect for one another and common objectives. Traoré's position might spur more South-South collaboration and forge a unified front against Western dominance. Furthermore, Africa has some power of its own. The continent is youthful, full of potential, and abundant in natural resources. Not only is Traoré's vision of a united Africa that capitalizes on these capabilities realistic, but it also makes strategic sense. African countries can develop a strong alliance that can withstand external pressure if they band together and combine their resources and skills. Traoré is a strong advocate for togetherness and self-reliance, which are essential components of this accomplishment. However, the difficulties are still very great. Beyond just political will, it will take a cultural revolution and a thorough reevaluation of Africa's place in the world to overcome the West's influence, which extends beyond the continent's borders. Traoré's leadership provides a glimpse of this new Africa, one that is self-sufficient, confident, and not afraid to assert its sovereignty internationally. However, Traoré's vision must also negotiate the complexities of intra-African politics. Even while a lot of African leaders agree with him that the continent should have greater independence, it takes skill to bring these disparate interests together into a cohesive plan. It will take a coordinated effort by the African Union, regional groups, and individual countries to fend off outside pressure and develop internal resources. This calls for economic cooperation, cross-cultural interchange, and mutual assistance in addition to political unity. Although the obstacles are great, Traoré's leadership is already spurring progress. There is a rising realization throughout Africa that the traditional methods of doing things are no longer adequate. The continent needs audacious, creative solutions that put African interests ahead of those of outsiders. All African leaders are urged by Traoré's position to join him in the pursuit of genuine freedom. The question now is not so much whether Traoré's vision will survive, but rather if it will thrive as he continues on this daring path. In conclusion, Ibrahim Traoré's leadership represents a sea change for Africa. He represents a fundamental break from the past with his outspoken opposition to Western imperialism, his appeal to eradicate cowardice, betrayal, and ineptitude, and his vision of a united, sovereign Africa. Not only does Traoré challenge the West, but he also challenges Africa to realize its own potential, reject the legacy of colonialism, and forge forth on a new path centered on competence, unity, and self-reliance. The leadership of Traoré is not merely a ray of optimism. For all of Africa, it is an urgent call to action. Africa's long struggle for true independence may finally be near if the continent can unite behind leaders like Traoré, who aren't hesitant to question the current quo and strive for meaningful change. Africa can and will overcome the obstacles in its path if it is united, courageous, and determined. The lion is back, and it is not going to go away. This is Africa's moment. It is certain that Traoré's influence will extend beyond Burkina Faso as we look to the future. His idea has the power to spark a movement that rethinks Africa's role in the world and spreads throughout the continent. It's a vision of an Africa both free of colonial remnants and a world leader in development. A continent that directs its own course and encourages others to follow suit. Traoré imagines an Africa that is well within our reach. This is the Africa we can achieve. Africa can finally break free from the shackles of its colonial past and pave a new route toward true freedom and prosperity by heeding Traoré's call for a new style of leadership. This is a reality that needs to be realized. It's not simply a dream. It's a reality that's closer than ever with people like Traoré at the helm. One thing is certain as we witness this juvenile lion continuing to roar. Africa is prepared to take off. In his bold defiance, Captain Ibrahim Traoré's message to the West is clear. He is not afraid to be terminated for the sovereignty and dignity of his people. His words echo the spirit of many African leaders who have resisted foreign domination throughout history, standing up to neo-colonialism in all its forms. Traoré's courage speaks to a larger struggle, one of self-determination and the quest for true independence. But his message also calls on Africans to reflect deeply. Are we truly free if our resources, policies, and futures are still controlled by external forces? How long will we allow foreign powers to dictate the terms of our progress? And most importantly, what sacrifices are we, as Africans, willing to make to reclaim our destiny? We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.